My name is Anna Craston, and I'm a senior manager at PwC, and I work within our insurance sector, supporting our clients on their transformation agendas. Businesses and leaders across industries are facing key questions and concerns about their future workforce. The PwC CEO survey further highlights this concern. 93% of respondents say they recognise the need to make a change or are already changing their strategy for attracting and retaining talent. I'll talk a little on attraction and retention separately. Later, we'll hear firsthand from colleagues across the London market and hear their experiences. We're seeing some key trends, such as the proliferation of AI, automation, which are exacerbating the need to review the workforce, skills, and capabilities needed for the future, and changing expectation of employees, meaning that employers need to offer employees something meaningful beyond the 9 to 5 to retain them. If we look historically at the London market, it has struggled with the attraction of diverse talent due to people either not knowing about or their preconceptions towards the London market and what it does. It has, in the past, had a fairly stereotypical image being a little dull. Unless you've lived in London or had friends, family working there, it's unlikely that you would have heard about it. Lots of work has been done to raise the profile of the London market by the London Market Group, and in particularly working with schools across London boroughs to educate the next generation of talent into the London market. What we have seen is the power of these companies, supported by organisations such as the LMG, CII, and LMA, to provide the scale to be able to host schemes. We are also supporting these organisations, providing learnings from our own schemes. Annually, we run a number of different surveys, such as our London Market Survey, which provide insights into organisations and the challenges that they are facing. The fundamentals need to be in place: pay, benefits, and flexible working. Your employee proposition needs to be competitive and forward-looking. But to employees, they're seen as the fundamentals. When looking at retention, there are a number of key factors to be taken into account. Firstly, the use of technology. People entering the workplace today are more technologically capable than ever before. They don't expect to be undertaking manual processing. Secondly, culture. We have seen a shifting dynamic of workforce expectations, with individuals increasingly looking for purpose to be a core part of their work and what they do. Again, our London Market Survey results highlighted culture as being the top lever for retaining talent. Places which are seen to be good places to work struggle less with the war of talent. Thirdly, professional and career growth. We are seeing younger talent entering the workplace expecting different career pathways than historically. They want a broad range of experiences, don't expect to be undertaking more manual processes which can be automated, and are looking to develop a broad range of skills, not only in a specialism or risk type, but across leadership, data, analytics, and people management skills. Organisations need to review their training and development programs, invest in these to support employees to enhance skills and advance careers. To do this, create clear pathways and opportunities, including lateral moves and access to leadership roles to gain experience. And finally, investing in mentorship and coaching to support the professional growth and development. There are a few key things that can be done, and I hope this has come across, that there's been lots of progress. But work with educational institutes to attract top talent. Use scale as a key mechanism to attract talent into your business, supporting many of the initiatives which are working with schools and marketing to the broader population. And finally, do not underestimate the power of your culture. This is how people think about your organisation, sometimes before they've even stepped through the door. Welcome, Phoebe, Jacinta, Simone, and Alfie. Thank you so much for joining us today on our podcast talking about attracting and retaining diverse talent in the London market. Just to kick us off, can I just pass around the room to hear a little bit about yourself and your career so far? So Phoebe, if we can kick off with you.
Thanks, Anna, and thanks to Instech and PwC for organising this. My name is Phoebe Thomas, and I'm a carbon underwriter in CFC's innovation team. The innovation team was set up to develop new products for the insurance market using new technology, new data, and new distribution models to address protection gaps. Our main focus over the last year has been on the carbon markets and climate solutions because we want to drive high quality carbon credits and help scale the markets. So we help investors de-risk their solutions in that space.
Amazing. Jacinta, can I pass over to you?
Hi, I'm Jacinta Chiang. I'm a graduate in the cyberbroking team at WTW. I'm on the graduate programme, so last year I was in property casualty claims, but in this rotation I've made a change to cyberbroking.
Brilliant. Simone?
Hi, I'm Simone Ritson. I'm a Senior Associate Consultant at PwC. I sit within our insurance practice and I focus on underwriting transformation within the London market.
Brilliant. And last but not least, I'll pass over to Alfie.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for having me. My name's Alfie Holt, and I am the Head of Claims Due Diligence and Onboarding at Marco Capital. Marco are a legacy specialist provider across Lloyd's and European markets, and as part of my role, I lead the claims assessment on prospective business, and then following successful transactions, ensure smooth onboarding across people, processes, and technology and claims.
Great. Well, it's so lovely to have you all here today. Jacinta, I'll start with yourself. You mentioned you've entered the industry on the graduate pathway. Would love to hear your perceptions of insurance before joining the industry and now having joined the industry.
Yeah, of course. To be frank, when I was at university, I had never heard of insurance and I had no idea what it was. So I studied geography and I honestly thought I was going to work in civil service and that would be my life. So I did that after graduating. I found that I was actually needing a little bit more socializing and I enjoyed the idea of networking a little bit more. I like the idea of finding your niche. So I had a friend who at university had interned at Allianz, and she said, "Oh, Jacinta, maybe insurance would be a good fit for you. It's quite social. You could find a niche in anything from fine art and specie to cyber to terrorism." And that was when I was like, this sounds really interesting. And on top of that, you can do a lot of networking, a lot of socializing, and that just kind of ticked my boxes. So my perception before insurance, and to be honest, I think anyone who's joining a new industry probably won't take the leap of faith if they didn't see it positively. And then in terms of how I found myself in the graduate program, so I was looking at different graduate opportunities, and it was Willis's or WW's that really stuck out to me. I admittedly cold messaged lots of people who were on the graduate programs in the year above me. And I was like, hey, I just love to, speak to you about your experience and answer some questions. And it was all the graduates in the years above me here at WTW who would just reply to me and be like, yeah, put in some time, more than happy to answer your questions. And that was when I really got that impression of people being very, very friendly, very keen to help you grow and enter the industry.
That's great. And Phoebe, how does that resonate with your own experience of joining the industry?
I actually want to echo a lot of what Jacinta said in terms of not knowing a lot about insurance before I decided to take a job at CFC. And I studied history, so not one of those vocational subjects that leads you into kind of finance or business. In my graduation summer, I did a vacation scheme in law, and having completed that, I spoke to a fantastic mentor I had at the time, and she suggested insurance. And I then did some research online. I was looking at claims positions, I was looking at wordings, I was looking at underwriting versus broking, and to be honest, didn't really know which avenue to go down because each have their benefits. And I completed a into insurance empower development 2-day course in my graduation summer, which actually just ran through kind of what it took to apply to different positions, what the reality was of each of those positions in kind of different companies, and in both Lloyd's, in the syndicate market and the company market, and kind of the different avenues you can go down. So after completing that, I then applied to CFC's cyber team, ended up working in our tech cyber team. And it was what I expected in many ways, because the risk analysis aspect, the pricing, the social side was what kind of people sold the industry on. But I think having worked on the ground as an underwriter, I think the role is so much broader than I expected it to be. I think the business development side and still getting that kind of social element, working with people, has been something I've really enjoyed, as well as the kind of technical risk analysis on either tech or cyber, or this new kind of product line, which is considering political risks. It's looking at kind of natural environments, catastrophe, property elements. And I think that variety is something I really wanted from the beginning.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Simone, you've come from a consulting background and chosen insurance as your choice. What specifically out of the broad range of insurance opportunities there are has really drawn you to the London market specifically?
And it's interesting that you used the word chosen there. I didn't actually know much about insurance at all before joining the PwC grad scheme. What's so great about the grad scheme is when you join from day one, you have the opportunity to kind of roll onto a project in any industry. And it just so happened that on my first day, the first opportunity that came to me was a insurance project. And I just decided to say yes and stay open-minded, see what it was like. And that ended up being a transformation project in the London market, looking at building a underwriting workbench.
I'd love to hear from you, Alfie. Could you just give me a bit of history to your career and any perceptions you might have had before joining the industry?
So I was in a very similar position to all of us here today. I had limited interaction or understanding of the insurance industry, and similar to Simone, I almost fell into the London market as part of a graduate scheme. So I spent the last 5 years as a graduate consultant. About 4 years of that, I worked with our London market insurance team, so operational and digital transformation. And I've stuck ever since, really. And now at Marco Capital, working in the claims space.
That's great. And it's really interesting to hear about the different activities which have retained you all within the market. Would love to hear from each of you kind of one standout thing that has happened in your career so far. Alfie.
Yeah, it's a great question. So for me, I was very lucky to go on secondment to the LMA, whereby I supported the LMA claims team in running claims committees and supporting various market initiatives. I think it was here where I was really able to appreciate the essence of the market. So seeing people come together to resolve issues, working collaboratively to drive better outcomes for the market. It really highlighted and I guess resonated with me that this is a sort of people first, people led industry. I was able to recognize it's actually a really exciting time to be part of the market. There's an abundance of operational and digital change going on that I think it's a really exciting thing to be a part of.
I think one opportunity that stood out to me was the fact I got to go on a 2-week work trip in my previous team, because it was a US-based team working with kind of US-based technology companies. And we got to go out there and speak to brokers. And the fact that we could meet people we'd been working with over email and Teams for 2 years, and kind of that relationship building element of all trying to work together to achieve the best outcomes for the clients, and kind of really getting to discuss some of the deals we've been working on and the underwriting accounts in person with these really supportive brokers kind of made me realize that you can transcend countries and you're all working to deliver those great outcomes. So I think the fact that we still work in an industry that gives you those opportunities to travel and meet a whole bunch of different partners from across the US was an epic experience. And I know a lot of people in the industry get to experience similar.
I've now been working in insurance from a consulting perspective for about 3 years. And I think there's two main areas that have really stood out to me in my kind of career so far. The first one is when we delivered, it was on our first project, and we went live with our underwriting workbench. I found it extremely fascinating when we kind of passed that go live delivery line, and we're seeing the workbench in action and having those real conversations with underwriters to then capture more of their feedback, understand how they're using it, understanding different areas to optimize. And it's those kind of conversations I would have with the underwriters, either if it's one-to-one or in a group, where I then became extremely fascinated in the structure of a risk and all of the thought that goes into how you price the risk. And so really having that insight has made me just want to stay in it and continue learning more about what insurance has to offer. The second one that was quite pivotal to me was my first tour of Lloyd's. It's such a magnificent building, seeing the underwriting room and how much space there is and feeling all of the energy. It's so exciting. And it's also so exciting that it's here in London and it's literally on our doorstep.
Couldn't agree with you more. Very much felt the same when I walked into the building as well. Jacinta, if we pass over to yourself.
Yeah, of course. So I don't think I can just pick one thing. And having rotated and been in two different teams, I've had different experiences in both. But I think I want to start first on my claims side, which I don't think gets as much exposure and as much sort of PR as as broking and underwriting. But yeah, in my time in claims, it was really interesting to see how important it is to support your clients in their time of need. I ended up working for some time in claims operations for a really large client, and it was property casualty. So I'd see everything from like the tenants or building owners of this company having escape of waters, which sounds very boring, but it was honestly very interesting, all the way to casualty claims. And you have to support them through that, not just emotionally, but and empathetically, but also financially, of course. So that was a really, really interesting opportunity to be able to work with people who individually, not necessarily corporations, but individually had losses and support them through that. And I think that is really fundamental to what insurance is. And then I guess a less formal one would be last year. It's quite random, but these are the kinds of things that happen in insurance. I got to see 21 Savage live in the box in O2. Quite random. Never thought that would ever happen to me, but there I was in the box. Yeah, celebrating and partying to 21 Savage. And that was all thanks to building relationships with underwriters.
That's brilliant. That's exactly the sort of content that will be helping attract and retain talent in the London market. Another kind of point on the podcast today is how can companies attract and retain talent. So would love to hear, what steps do you think companies in the London market can be taking to create a more inclusive work environment? Simone, I'll pass the baton to you first.
Absolutely. I think the key is outreach programs, looking at lots of different schools in lots of different areas and also lots of different universities, and then making those outreach programs engaging and active. So if it is insurers or having representatives from different companies within the London market going to all of these different schools and universities to talk about what they do so that people really understand what it means to be an underwriter or a broker. I feel like we've kind of touched upon this in what we were saying previously, but it does feel like a lot of people don't always know what insurance is and what it means to work in insurance. So I think those, as part of the outreach programs, I do think it's really important to not only say, hey, we're here and you can come work with us or for us, but really saying, what role does an insurer play within society?
I'd love to hear from you, Alfie.
Yeah, so this is a really important topic and I very much appreciate the chance to give my views on this. So to echo what Simone has said, I think outreach programs and partnerships are critical. This is because it increases visibility and understanding of the London market, particularly outside of London and your typical insurance hotspots. So I think there's almost a gateway that's been missing for a long time, and you're starting to see an emergence of that, and people are starting to get more access to the industry. I think there's also an element of providing access and opportunities in various formats. So, the market bodies are doing a great job of this. There's initiatives now around job simulations that are a lot more accessible than, having to go on a work experience trip for 2 weeks in the middle of London. I think there's a real power in being heard, and Marco started to introduce some really positive initiatives. So there's now a EDI officer and committees looking at exploring partnerships, but also how can we foster more inclusive events and a more inclusive environment. So whether that's from, feedback from colleagues or looking at our recruitment program, there's steps being taken, which is really great to see.
And Phoebe, you mentioned you did kind of a 2-day insights program. How did that really launch you into confirming that insurance was the industry for you? And And how do you think it's helping other talent get into the market?
I think diversity of thought is so important for innovation in the insurance market. And as Simone and Jacinta have mentioned, kind of ensuring that insurance responds to the changing challenges that we face as society. And my big passion is kind of climate change, so how we evolve products to meet those kind of demands. But I think in terms of getting people interested, I am part of a committee called the Next Generation of Insurance Network, and I've been so impressed by the support by insurance companies to kind of hold a whole range of different events and sponsor events and provide networking opportunities, which students have been really interested in attending. And it's students from a whole load of different kind of degree backgrounds, and the networking that happens at these events means that they can explore relevant skill sets within insurance roles. And I think it's that on the ground kind of talking, which you see their faces that kind of open up interest in what their futures could be like if they joined the insurance market.
That sounds like a brilliant initiative and kind of a real key step forward into making sure that we attract and retain that diverse talent in the London market. Jacinta, I'll go to you and ask how diversity and inclusion can be promoted better within the industry.
Yeah, that's a really fantastic question. I think Phoebe and Simone have put forward some incredible initiatives that are happening at the moment, and definitely ones we should champion more. I think this question of diversity, inclusion, and insurance is one that gets questioned and asked quite a lot, and I kind of want to bring a bit of a fresh perspective to D&I and push the envelope a little bit. And by now, I think most people are quite familiar with D&I, and it's a topic which I think even if you're living under a rock, you will have at least come across, whether that be Lloyd's Dive-In or the external events like Engine are putting forwards, or the internal networks that are more and more so being created within corporations. But I feel like a lot of people have been saying to me that no real tangible change has been made, and they don't necessarily feel like D&I is being pushed further. So I guess I want to start by probing if we really understand what D&I is and what we're trying to achieve and what the 2.0 of D&I could be. We've had a sort of first wave, which is the hiring of more diverse talent, but how can we actually retain it? If you were to ask an ordinary person what is D&I, I think the first thing that most people think of is in terms of a diverse workforce, usually created through HR and management practices to have people from diverse backgrounds and equal opportunity, whether that be from minority backgrounds regarding gender or race or faith, socioeconomic backgrounds, sexual orientation, etc. But I think that this is a bit of a, not necessarily a misunderstanding, but actually not the entire picture of D&I. If we focus on D&I and that it's positive discrimination or that it's equitable interbreeding practices or diversity quotas, we're actually forgetting, even though these are amazing initiatives, we're actually forgetting that half of D&I is the inclusion. And I think what the 2.0 is and the second wave of D&I is to actually think about how can we create inclusive environments, because I think HR are increasingly doing their job well of hiring diverse talent, whether that be through grad programs, but how can we actually make sure that once you hire these diverse talent, this pool of people, that we're actually making sure that they feel included and want to stay? Because if you're the only person who looks like you in the team or has a background like you in the team, and you've been hired for diversity's sake and you don't necessarily feel like you're fit in, you don't ski, you don't play tennis, you don't watch rugby, you don't like drinking beers, and maybe you participate in Ramadan. If you're not the only person who looks like you and does the things that you do and you can't engage in those conversations, why would you want to stay? So I think it's really hugely important that we have more inclusion-led management practices on HR.
Sorry, Jacinta, you just said that so eloquently. It's very interesting your kind of comment on that diversity almost feels like the side to which people feel more comfortable to talk about. And it almost feels like it can sometimes be a checkbox. In the inclusion part, that's actually where the real work comes in. I've been thinking about this element of how do you ensure that someone feels included or that people feel included. And I guess I've started leaning towards the idea of reverse mentoring schemes. For those kind of listening, a reverse mentoring scheme is when two people are partnered up, in the traditional sense, mentor, mentee, but it will be that the mentor is the person who's more junior, mentee is the person who's more senior, or it will be people who are partnered up because they come from different backgrounds, whether it be socioeconomically, sexual orientation. There's that diversity element in it. But the power in reverse mentoring comes more in the fact that it establishes a relationship between two people who then feel as though they've got a space to discuss. And what that does is it opens up people to understanding different perspectives. And I do think that implementing reverse mentoring at a medium to hopefully large scale within organizations does have the power to change a culture.
Can I just build on what Simone was saying? I think that's a really fantastic idea. And on a broader scale, we actually have culture days at CFC where it kind of opens up that forum for people to share their experiences. And I think people's experiences can be so different across organizations and across different teams, and actually sharing those ideas where, whether it's kind of non-alcoholic events or getting a more of a focus on mental health, kind of yoga events, and just having that kind of resource and sharing collaborative environment at these culture days makes those kind of nuts and bolts of the everyday inclusive atmosphere and environment that everyone can feel that they're part of and feel that they can share.
I think that was a brilliant point and discussion. Just to kind of focus on retention, just for the last little bit, would love to hear any of your thoughts on key steps needed to be taken by employees on supporting the retention of talent. We've obviously talked about the importance of inclusion, but any key steps or actions you would like to call out to kind of keep that retention in the market?
In terms of retention and keeping graduates in the market and talent kind of retained within insurance, I think making people aware of the fantastic opportunities that also are available outside their companies, like the Lloyd's Lab programs. There's some amazing mentoring opportunities that I know we've discussed, but there's so much opportunity and variety within the insurance market. I think making that known to people, so if they're ever feeling stagnant within their positions, there's so much space for progression and to learn new skills, whether that be risk modeling or broking side or underwriting. At the core of that is keeping people excited about their jobs and keeping people challenged.
The other area that I think is really key to the retention of talent is bringing to light the societal impact that insurance firms have on the economy. I wonder whether there's an element of retention is tied to bringing to light the societal impact within networks of the insurance market. So companies can really talk about some great kind of policies that they've insured on and the reason why and why that's important.
I think it's something the market is challenged with at the minute. The market needs to keep pace with macro developments, but also generational requirements. So in the claims space, for instance, the claims handler of today requires a very different set of skills to that of 10 or even 5 years ago. And similarly, what's important to graduates today is, again, very different to that of 5-10 years ago. So I think it's about people and companies striking a balance. And, I think companies that are able to respond quicker to this will lead the way in terms of retention, and those that look to do nothing will run a risk of getting left behind. So, if we look across to other industries, for instance, if you look at banking and the emergence of challenger banks or digital banks, you can really see the response in that kind of space. I wouldn't say there's an issue with retention. I think the issue is around the attraction point, but I think a page is starting to turn where the initiatives are in place, but we can always do more to diversify that pool of talent and bridge the gap.
In terms of things that I think can be actioned now to retain talent, I'd like to just highlight that at the moment it's Ramadan, so some people will be taking the time to fast, and something that's super actionable right now would be if you've got someone in your team celebrating Ramadan or fasting, that you support them through that, whether that be to give them more flexibility in terms of days going into the office or to take the entire month to work from home. I just think that's something that managers and teams can really support to make sure that people who are practicing Ramadan will feel included.
That has been brilliant. Thank you so much, Phoebe, Jacinta, Simone, and Alfie for your time today. I think it's been a really fruitful discussion about attracting and retaining talent in the London market. I really appreciate you all taking the time. Thank you.